Hey, what's up, everyone? Patrick Donahoe here, and I'm going to give you a summary and overview of day 5 of the Tony Robbins Finance and Economics Summit up in Whistler, British Columbia. This was a pretty awesome day. I'm going to spend just a few minutes on two things. Peter Diamandis and the talk he gave regarding so many different disruptive technologies that are right on the brink of becoming a part of society, our society. But then the second is actually I'm going to start with this one, which is Oz Pearlman. Oz Pearlman put on an incredible show last night. He is a mentalist, and for those of you who don't know what mentalism, I'm not too familiar with it, but how I would explain it is a combination between, like a hypnosis, mind reading / magic show. So I'll just give you one of the things that he did, which was pretty extraordinary. But check him out online, social media. But Oz, so there's two things that kind of led up to this. So earlier in the show, he had a guy that he had him pick from the audience. People would raise their hands. So he asked the question of who has cash on them, like more than one bill that they don't necessarily know all the different bills. And so a few people raised their hand. So this guy raised his hand. So Oz had him, essentially take the cash out, turn around, turn his back, and then shuffle them, and then pick one, and then he took a Sharpie marker and signed the bill. And so he then once he signed the bill, he had the guy fold up the bill and then sit on it. And then later in the show, probably an hour after this all happened, what he did is he had, again, volunteers from the crowd. Actually, what he did, he this is interesting. There were two people who it was their birthday. And so he basically said, whose birthday is today? So it was two people in the crowd whose birthday was. And so what he did is he guessed, or he had them tell him the birth day and month of somebody. Think of that somebody and say their birth day and month. Then he multiplied those two numbers together, and then he had somebody else in the crowd just pick a random number between 1 and 150, and he added that number to the multiplied number of the two birthdays. Okay. Then he essentially had the guy who folded the bill up, underneath his seat, and or under, he was sitting on the entire night, opened it up, and it was the serial number of that bill. So I was like, again, I don't know how. I'm sure there's an explanation for it, but it was pretty awesome. All right, now let's get into to Peter Diamandis. But first off, Oz Pearlman, if you guys want to check him out, he really funny, really great show. Did a bunch of other cool stuff too, but don't have tons of time today. So Peter, I've known Peter, not personally, but I've known about Peter Diamandis. Back during 2008 and 9, there were a lot of very pessimistic views on the economy and the world, whether it was the collapse of currency or whether it was, China taking over, or whether, there was all sorts of perspective on what was going on and what to do about it. So with Stephen Kotler and Peter wrote a book called Abundance, and that book was profound, because the book really opened my mind to, despite all the negative things that are going on and things that can concern you and make you scared, there are so many incredible, amazing things that are going on that typically don't get the same presence in media and the headlines. And so I'm going to give you a few of those things. But Peter, I would say, he has an MD. But I would consider him a futurist in a sense, and he has a group called Abundance 360. He also sponsors, I believe he owns X Prize, which is essentially raising money and rewarding the solutions to some innovative ideas. And so some of those solutions were how to get a rocket to land on an asteroid and mine the asteroid. The one that they're doing right now is how to, I think I mentioned this the other day, but how to use stem cells to grow meat like beef for a certain dollar amount per pound, I think $1 per pound. And so whoever figures out how to do that gets the prize, right? So there's a bunch of them. So X Prize, Abundance 360 are the organizations that Peter's a part of or runs. So it's a very dynamic presentation. This guy went for hours and didn't miss a beat, and he was so dynamic. He was so clear and concise and inspiring. But basically, his premise is, that we're headed toward unprecedented abundance. And he believes that there's going to be more wealth created in the next 10 years than in the last 100. So not even up to this point, but in the next 10 years. And he looks, he tries to have the mindset of abundance always, right? Which is just looking for opportunities to provide value, looking for, how human innovation is able to take the issues and challenges that face society and come up with solutions. So let me get into a few of the things that he talked about. So one of them was, health related. I'll go through some different ones. But the rise of CRISPR, which is kind of a gene mapping, gene therapy type of technology, where essentially they're able to map the genome, and CRISPR is the way in which you can transport corrections to the gene code and make adjustments to it. HIV was one of them. Blindness was another one. Cancer is another one. It's just being able to figure out what part of the human genome that can be adjusted or fixed, right, in order to prevent certain things. So anyway, just fascinating. He also, he talked about the technology that's in healthcare and the artificial intelligence that's going to be a part of that, where it's going to make healthcare so much easier and also affordable. One of them was organs. They've figured out ways to grow organs inside of sheep. So human organ, from stem cells, grow human organs inside of other animals and basically be able to replace a heart or replace a lung. Or anyway, it's pretty fascinating what's going on. Now, I'm not saying any of this is right or wrong. I'm not kind of coming up with opinion. I'm just giving you information, right? And so is Peter. But just talking about what people are working on, not just in the U.S. but around the world. Energy was another big thing, and he talked really about the rise in efficiency with batteries, with solar. Egypt right now is constructing the largest solar farm on Earth. And the technology just keeps getting better and better. Obviously, the Gigafactory of Tesla that's in Nevada, it's basically, I think they have plans to do 10 to 12 of those. And just the amount of energy that's going to be created there just reduces dependence on other energy sources, right? Food and water. He was talking about, one of the, I think it was an X Prize where for a certain dollar amount, I think it was like 0.01 cents a liter, people were able to, the challenge, the X Prize was to extract water from the air, right? So condensation, just kind of bizarre, but somebody did it and figured out how to do it and won the prize. And so he talked about, water and getting clean water, not necessarily just from, under the ground, but now you can get it from the atmosphere. So that's interesting. Autonomous farms is another thing. Let's see. Again, he talked more about what I mentioned the other day regarding the X Prize that Tony Robbins is involved with, which is get the meat right. So stem cells and being able to create beef, Wagyu beef for $1 a pound, and right now a third of the earth is used for cattle, and the amount of water consumption, as well as the gases that are emitted due to the flagellance of cattle, right, is affecting certain things. So anyway, it's interesting what they're doing. Tyson is involved with doing it for chicken. Same with Facebook. Anyway, fascinating. Let's see here. All right, so this is what I'm gonna say regarding just the notion of transportation, and I'll get into what Waymo is doing, which is a company by Google, which is autonomous vehicles. You know, some of the flying, like Uber Air, what Bell Helicopter and Boeing is working on. But this is what I'll say regarding this type of technology. I mean, you have theories out there that are saying, oh, it's 30 years away, it's 10 years away, it's 5 years away. I mean, nobody knows, right? The technology exists right now. So when is it gonna show up? So the example I thought of is my experience last summer with the technology of those electric scooters, right? So there's two primary companies, Bird and also Lime. Now Bird got this like insane, you know, over $1 billion valuation in less than a year. So I remember distinctly like driving to work, right? And I only have a 10-minute drive. I live, you know, just a few miles from my office. And so I was driving and I saw these like scooters like lined up lined up along the sidewalk. And I was like, what are those? Then, you know, later that day, I saw people riding around on them, and they were, you know, before I knew it, within days, just all over the place. And then another scooter company arrived, Lime, which is kind of a competitor to Bird, but Bird's just an electric scooter that they just all showed up. They just got dropped off, and people started using them because you use your app, connect the app to, you know, a bank account, and there's a QR code to scan the QR code, get on the Bird scooter, and then it's electronically powered. Then they have a program where people can sign up to charge them. So they'll go around and collect them all and get paid to charge them at their house, right? So people would collect them and then drop them off all charged. And the point I'm trying to make is that it arrived like out of nowhere. And suddenly everybody's using them. In downtown Salt Lake City, everybody uses them. It's incredible. And so I looked, you know, and then the government, you know, they had like some emergency sessions and figured out, because people were on the sidewalk and running into people and crashing and falling over. It was funny. And I've seen like some actual crashes where people are, you know, taking a selfie and then because, you know, the handlebars are you have to have both hands on them. Like I've seen some pretty bad crashes anyway. But my point is that this technology just all of a sudden showed up and became a part of like everyday life. And Salt Lake people ride these miles and miles instead of riding their bike. Now, the example is from the autonomous vehicle side of things, or Uber Air. I look at technologies that currently, you know, are theoretical, maybe exist in test or beta form, but haven't become a part of our society. And I look at that dynamic, and that I feel, based on just how much or how quickly autonomous vehicles are evolving as far as the safety side of things, and you know, the adoption, that they're going to be here before we know it. I mean, he believes 2023 is when you'll have fleets of these autonomous vehicles that just can show up and take you to work or take you wherever you want to go with no drivers. Also, he used statistics as far as the funding that's going into Uber Air, Bell Helicopter. Boeing is developing, you know, some flying vehicles. Some of it's being used in other parts of the world. But he has regular conference and communication with the FAA regarding this, regarding drones. And the FAA, and you could be lying, I don't know, but the FAA wants this, and they're trying to figure out a way to make it work. So it's really interesting. But yeah, he believes that it's you know, just a couple of years out, not, you know, a decade or more out. But you know, one of the examples he used was GM cut 14,000 jobs just to focus on the self-driving car. And then, you know, yeah, obviously the regulatory environment is one of those things which can, you know, be a hindrance. At the same time, they're coming so quick. Like I said, Bird just showed up, just showed up, and out of nowhere, and people started using it. And you know, the regulatory environment had to adapt accordingly. He also talked about, you know, SpaceX is on the brink of launching 12,000 satellites. Same with a company called OneWeb. And these are all gigabit type of satellite internet around so basically it would have wireless internet gigabit speed. And also he pointed to the countries that are currently not online, but that there's going to be 4.2 billion more people, which is essentially like it's way more than exists right now. I can't remember how many billion of people are on the, I think it's a billion, a little over, I don't know, I'm not going to state the statistic, but 4.2 billion people are going to be connected over the next 5 to 6 years. And there'll be tens of trillions of dollars flowing into to the economy, the world economy, because of that. Also, as I mentioned the other day with the Middle East, the population of young people, those under the age of 30, is just massive. Whether it's Africa or whether it's the Middle East or India or China, there's unprecedented adoption of technology and getting connected, and how people their lives are being transformed because of what they see as possible and what people ultimately want. So it's pretty fascinating. Now he wanted to talk about robotics, also VR, virtual reality, and AR, augmented reality. Tim Cook said that augmented reality is going to be as bigger than the smartphone. As far as its scope is concerned, as far as training is concerned. I mean, there's so many different applications to it. And then, artificial intelligence is really, the one issue where I would say a lot of people have some reservations about, but it's already part of society. And as computing power gets stronger, it'll just become a bigger part of it. But whether it's facial recognition, whether it's there's a program he talked about which is called LawGeek, where the artificial intelligence can read and go through legal contracts and point out discrepancies or point out missing pieces faster than any lawyer, and also gets, they actually catch everything as opposed to certain lawyers not catching everything. So went through that stuff, just also the acquisitions that are occurring, Google purchasing a company called DeepMind. Yeah, and the CEO of Google said that artificial intelligence has a more profound implication on life than fire did, as far as how that transformed things. So what he really ended with is, there's so much information going on in information being created every day. I think I'm adding to it right now, but it's really plugging into how fast the world is changing. And essentially having the mindset to adopt certain things. And so he has some recommendations there. First, it's digitizing. Digitizing is one of those things where businesses who aren't digital, figuring out ways to become digital. Also, looking for the disruptive players in whatever industry that you're in. And then finally, it's the dematerialization, and dematerialization is really the efficiency associated with how business is operated, which is more virtual franchise model. But looking at industries, looking at you business owners and entrepreneurs out there, it's figuring out how to dematerialize your business, so it's not centrally located in an office or a building, but it's also from a client perspective, how can it be around the world as opposed to either local or state or just domestically in the U.S. It's how can it be worldwide. So he really started to challenge how businesses are being incredibly disruptive because of their inability to adapt. But anyway, Peter Diamandis, follow this guy. I mean, he's on top of it, and he's so active when it comes to talking about the things that I'm sure there's a million things across his desk, but as far as how he filters it and what he gives and distributes to his audience, I would say are in line with what his theories are. But anyway, fascinating guy. Follow Peter. He's amazing. I'll put some links in the description so you guys can do that. But hope you guys are having an awesome week, thriving, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.